Fast forward to 2024, and Israel now has peace with 6 Arab countries: Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. I strongly believe that in the next 12 months, Israel will have peace with the 7th Arab country, Saudi Arabia, which will officially end the Arab-Israeli conflict. Much of the Arab world now understands that Israel is more of a solution than a problem, as intense ties between the nations, high-tech, security, fighting desertification, desalinization, intelligence, education, energy, and agri-tech are on the rise. The state of Israel has proven itself a solution to the many challenges facing this shared region. Now is the time to end the Arab-Israeli conflict and deliver a fatal blow to the Ayatollahs, and it can all be done not with a sword or a gun, but with a pen.
As a member of the Congressional Abraham Accords Caucus, Israel is America's greatest ally in the Middle East, and that will always be the case. Frankly, one of our greatest allies in the world. There's no doubt that this strategic partnership between Israel and the United States is one of the most bipartisan priorities that currently exists in this very polarized political environment in Washington.
I proudly supported legislation like the Israel Security Supplemental Appropriations Act to bolster Israel's security. My friends, we live in a very, very troubled time when it comes to Israel and the attack that Hamas made on Israel. And congressmen like myself have also felt the attacks on our official office. Many of you all have probably known or saw that my office was one of the first offices attacked by protesters to Israel. And I did not waver. My team did not waver. In fact, I'll share with you that we had fake blood splattered all over our windows, on our concrete, day after day after day. And the city of McAllen stood firmly with me and would send their crews on a daily basis to our office to clean the fake blood off of our sidewalks. But I think what showed strength was that my staff, you can imagine, my staff that has no security, still showed up every day at 8 a.m. And they would tell me, Congresswoman, we stand with Israel. And as their families are suffering in Israel and here in America, we will show our support by coming to work and saying that we will not fear any attacks. We will continue to stand with this country.
He is definitely one of the architects of the Abraham Accords. I think everyone in this room knows that we wouldn't be here today discussing and celebrate Abraham Accords if not for Jason Greenblatt, former Special Assistant to President Trump and U.S. Special Representative for International Negotiations. He was at the heartbeat of those negotiations, and I highly recommend reading his book, In the Path of Abraham, for an insider's guide on how the Accords came about and a roadmap for how we can build them into the future. I can tell you that his shuttle diplomacy, that I know of firsthand during those years, came to fruition. Here's a person who worked not only behind the scenes, but up in front of the scenes, negotiating the Abraham Accords, helping draft them, working with the president and the heads of other countries. And we have a lot to celebrate and a lot to be thankful for you being here, Jason. Thank you.
I actually just returned from about a month in the Middle East, and the optimism there about the future and the recognition of the importance of Israel as part of that framework. How we get there is another question, but it's like nothing I've ever seen before. So there is optimism despite the challenges, and thanks again for being here. The Saudis generally have been consistent with their position. They do want some sort of solution that isn't just taking care of the Palestinians, whether it's a fully sovereign state or it reflects the plan that President Trump released a couple of years ago. Somewhere in between, we'll see what happens. I can't blame the Saudis. It's important to them, as it is important to many of the Arab countries. But I think with a leader like President Trump, a leader like Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, and many other hardworking people working on it, they will get somewhere during this term. I really hope that is the case. I just can't ballpark what the odds are and how fast it'll happen. One of the best pieces of advice I could give the pro-Israel crowd, of which I think we're probably all a part of, is when you look at the Abraham Accords countries, particularly the UAE, let's say, because that's probably where your mind is going, put on your UAE glasses. Don't put on your Israel glasses or Israel supporter glasses, right? They have their own national interest to protect, their own national security, their own economy, their own world. So as much as they want this relationship with Israel to be strong and consistent and expand, they also have to worry about what's happening in their own region. So I actually applaud the UAE and others because I think what they've done is try super hard since October 7 to remain an ally and friend of Israel, while at the same time, whether I like what they say or not, and I sometimes don't, including some comment they made this week, there are things they say about Israel and Israel's steps and all that are uncomfortable for me. But I applaud them for sticking with it. I think they remain committed to it. I think that as time goes on, they will remain committed to it. I think it's important to their psychology. Never, right? Anti-Semitism has been around for far too long. There will always be haters of Jews and haters of Israel. And that's why you guys being here tonight and going to whatever events you go to for the support of Israel is so important. You have to think of yourselves as ambassadors, right? David Friedman and I and Jared and others, Avi Berkowitz, we didn't end up in government because we planned a career around government. We're very fortunate that President Trump brought us on and we got to do some amazing things. But in the private world, you get to do some amazing things too. And every single one of you should be out there fighting the craziness of South Africa, Ireland, the United Nations, et cetera, because there's a limit to what people in the government can spend time on. And without the private sector, without people putting together events like this, we don't have a shot in hell at fighting that. So keep up the good fight, everybody, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, we are busy on the Hill, but I wanted to prioritize this visit. I know what a challenging time this is for the state of Israel, for the people of Israel, and really throughout the broader Middle East. But as for the people of Israel, they remain resilient. This is the startup nation. They remain innovative and every bit as dynamic as they have been over the decades. Their economy is hanging in there amidst such incredible geopolitical challenges. Their military is comporting itself with great professionalism. Again, amidst just incredible challenges, unprecedented, really. And they remain a society of free people, free institutions, representative government. So the path towards peace and stability in the Middle East, it still runs through Jerusalem. And this is one of many reasons why it's important for the people of America to stay engaged, to stay supportive of the people of Israel, and to build on the successes, diplomatic successes of modern history in the Middle East.
We're honored to have members of the embassies and ambassadors with us. I'd like to single out and thank Ambassador Nivonga from the Embassy of Mozambique. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your friendship and support for the State of Israel. While we are here to celebrate the signing of the Abraham Accords with the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, I would like to suggest that Israel's relationship with Azerbaijan, a Muslim country, has gone from strength to strength and could be described as the first Abraham Accord. So I'd like to thank President Ilham Aliyev and his government, represented by the embassy here tonight. We have some special greetings and a video tonight from the Foreign Minister of Israel, the Honorary Gideon Sa'ar.
On October 7th, Hamas committed the most horrific attack against Jews since the Holocaust. 14 months after the massacre, Hamas and Hezbollah have been dramatically weakened. Their leaders have been eliminated. Assad's regime in Syria has collapsed. Iran received significant blows from Israel's Air Force in October. The enemies of Israel and America, who seek to spread death and destruction, have instead themselves been severely damaged.
The Abraham Accord represents a historic milestone in the pursuit of stability and cooperation in a region that has long been defined by its complexities. By normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, these agreements have opened the door to a new era of dialogue and partnership. They remind us that even in the face of long-standing divisions, diplomacy and courage can pave the way for transformative progress. I recently produced a film called Bardiyov about the first transport to Auschwitz. Despite my personal tragedies during the war, I am an optimist. I'd like to share my experience of my first visit to United Arab Emirates a year and a half after the Abraham Accords were signed. As a survivor of Bergen-Belsen and the founder of the Emil Fish and Jenny Fish Center of Holocaust Studies at Yeshiva University, and the founder of the Bardiyov Jewish Heritage Foundation, I was asked to be the keynote speaker at the International Holocaust Remembrance Day commemoration in Dubai. It was the first meeting of such a position. On January 27, 2022, members of various embassies, ambassadors from Israel, Germany, as well as other ministers and dignitaries participate in this historic event at the Crossroads of Museum in Dubai. For the Abraham Accord to be truly successful, they must address more than just trade and economics. They should be multidimensional and create opportunities for the diverse interaction, religious dialogue, sports, and educational partnerships such as student exchange programs, as well as cultural collaboration.
Thank you, Bobby, and thanks for your leadership. And I want to thank you all for being here this evening. The world is in the most precarious place since World War II and the Holocaust. And it is critical with the new administration coming in that we reestablish America's leading role in the world. Under President Trump, the Abraham Accords were one of the most significant foreign policy initiatives achieved in decades. Unfortunately, they've been allowed to languish under this current administration. And so it is critical that as President Trump comes back to office, that Congress work closely with the administration to support their efforts, not only to support our greatest ally, the State of Israel, but to normalize relations between Israel and Arab states. At the end of the day, if we want peace and prosperity in the Middle East, it requires Arab majority nations to recognize Israel's right to exist. It requires Arab majority nations to normalize relations, the most critical of which is Saudi Arabia. And that's why in this Congress, I was so proud to work together with Congressman Richie Torres to create the special envoy for the Abraham Accords, which is now law. Unfortunately, this administration refused to fill the position. But we are going to fight to make sure that the position not only gets filled, but that the objective of the Abraham Accords flourishes. As I hear from so many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle about the need for ceasefire and the need for a two-state solution, the reality is there can be no ceasefire or two-state solution if Arab states do not recognize Israel's right to exist. We all know that so much of the funding and support for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for the Houthis has come from Iran and the illicit oil trade between Iran and China. It's why I was proud to fight to get the SHIP Act and the Iran-China Energy Sanctions Act passed and signed into law in this Congress to take on the illicit oil trade and stop the flow of funds to terrorism. That's why we fought to pass the IGO Anti-Boycott Act to take on the BDS movement at the United Nations, and why we fought to defund UNRWA. And I can assure you in this next Congress, we will look to make that permanent. UNRWA should not receive 1 cent from the United States. We need to get the IGO Anti-Boycott Act across the finish line in the Senate. Senator Schumer refused to put that bill to the floor for a vote, as he did with the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, my bill to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses here in America. Languished for 7 months. Refused to put it on the floor because we didn't want to upset Bernie Sanders. Who gives a shit what Bernie Sanders thinks?
Tomorrow at lunchtime, we have a luncheon in the Cannon Caucus Room for the Golda Meir Commemorative Coin Project, which we're working on. Rather than be partisan and tell you why we didn't get all the signatures we wanted yet from the Democratic side, I can just say that what Representative Lawler alluded to has been blocking us as well, and we're hoping that we can get over that partisanship.
The reference to my quote about unequivocal support for Israel. I don't know about you, but I don't really believe people who always say our support is unequivocal and then the next word is but. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't think the words go together. Unequivocal, but. And how often have we heard that lately? And it's frustrating to me. So when I say unequivocal, I never say but. There are no conditions to unequivocal, or it wouldn't be unequivocal. The slight reference to FMS or foreign military sales, another topic, although obviously part of the larger context of normalizing relationships. And we in the United States, who have plenty of our own challenges as it relates to our own defense, should never lose sight that a key part of that are allies, that we are not the unilateral arsenal of democracy. It is a friendship. It is a collaboration. It is an alliance that makes up, in my view, the best arsenal of democracy. And with that simple, basic template, there's no better friend than Israel. So that brings me to the point that you're all here to talk about, and that's the Abraham Accords. And what a thrill election night was. And one of the reasons for me personally, and for a lot of people who think like I think, to be able to get the projection of strength, which I believe, by the way, I believe that projection of strength, that deterrence is not a weapon system. It's helpful. You need a good weapon system. But it's also an attitude. It's an attitude that comes with the projection of rhetoric, with the projection of unequivocal support with no buts, that matters. And then putting that to action is exactly why you guys, I don't want to reveal too many of my personal relationships, but I've rather enjoyed the last month meeting with Arab leaders who are grateful for the opportunity that this election presents them to know that if they're going to step back into this arena, and that there's risk with that, but that the risk is greatly mitigated by a president and an administration and a Congress that doesn't put but after unequivocal.
Peace in the Middle East, right? And 4 years ago, I would say we took the biggest leap forward in my lifetime when the Abraham Accords came about, a result of America being strong on the world stage. And I think when things like that happen, you got to ask yourself, who are the winners and who are the losers? Winners, I would argue, almost all of humanity. Losers, or who dislike that deal, I would argue, number one, Iran. For whatever reason, shortly thereafter, we loosen our maximum pressure campaign against Iran. For reasons I still understand, we free up monies for them that they then use to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, others. The horrible, horrific atrocities of October 7th occurred.
Because this is obviously a crucial moment for Israel, for the Middle East. It was 438 days ago that I joined House and Senate colleagues on a bipartisan trip to the region. At that time, the crown jewel of our efforts to secure Middle East peace and deter Iran was the Saudi-Israeli normalization agreement, which appeared to be within reach. We met with Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh and left feeling confident that this hope could come to fruition. That was on October 6th. 439 days later, the region has transformed beyond any of our recognition. Israel suffered the worst terror attack in its history. Nearly 100 hostages, dead and alive, still languish in Gaza. And war against Hamas in Gaza and against Hezbollah in Lebanon has had devastating human costs. But there is always, especially for our people, there is always hope, always reason for hope. News out of the Middle East today gives us some of that, with the possibility of Israeli-Saudi normalization. If you haven't read Haaretz, I commend the article to you. But that normalization seemingly closer, and as well seemingly closer for the hostages to be able to be brought home. Iran's network of terrorists, proxies, and puppets from Yahya Sinwar to Bashar al-Assad have disintegrated, in some cases quite literally. This is the product of you. I mean that in the nicest way possible.
If you want to help Jewish students across college campuses who, in spite of being told to go back to Poland, in spite of having swastikas drawn outside their dorm, in spite of being told to get off campus, have put on a bigger kippah, have put on their Star of David necklace, have flown an Israeli and American flag, if you want to help those students, then I please urge you to amplify, support, and vote for policymakers, Democrats and Republicans alike, who are helping Jewish students, who are advancing the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, the Countering Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, that are defunding UNRWA, that are defunding our college campuses. And I urge you, if you do that, you will be a living, breathing testament to the power and to the ideal that Am Yisrael Chai, that the Jewish people live, and the Jewish people will always live now and forever. Thank you very much.